Welcome. I'm Greg Washington, President of Patients Unlimited Marketing Consulting. I'm honored to introduce our invited guest, Jay Shore, founder and managing partner of The Best Medical Solutions. Jay's firm offers many business solutions, but today he's going to provide some valuable tips about credit card processing and how to get the best return on each credit card transaction. Jay, welcome.
Thank you very much, Greg, and thank you for the honor of being a part of your series. And we have a practice management consulting firm which deals in the operational, administrative, and financial guidance of medical practices, which is your prescription for success. Today, I would like to speak on an industry that really nobody understands. However, everybody has to use by default, because there are only a few methods in which a patient, client, however you refer them to, but in our industry, it's usually a patient. And I hear it many times as used as a client in the med spa industry. However, they are medical services and therefore they are patients. But in our industry, we have several forms of payment, which is cash, checks, credit cards, and other third-party financing, which is a lecture in and of itself. We do also offer 0% patient financing, and another time we may speak about that. But today, we're going to explain about the credit card industry and how they may steal money from your practice. And by stealing money, I don't mean actual theft. I mean, they may be just charging in excess of what you could, and more importantly, what you should be paying. And one of my famous lines as I go around the country lecturing at multiple conferences and writing for multiple different magazines in our industry is maybe we just don't know what we don't know. And therefore the purpose of today's webinar is to try and explain in the Cliff or Monarch's edition type of notes what credit card processing really is about. Now, it's very difficult because what we don't know in our industry is how we're going to try to solve this dilemma in actually allowing our credit cards to be processed differently. What we really have to understand, number one, when we end up doing credit card processing, where does the money go? And an overview of my presentation, and by the end of today's presentation, we're going to learn how to quickly understand your statement, because if you ever look at the statement, it is probably one of the most difficult things to understand. And the reason it's very difficult to understand is because there are so many codes and different types of charges that you have on your statement that you just take for granted that they're right without really understanding, because there's a lot of key terms and there's a lot of numbers that we just don't understand. And what you may not really believe is that you can negotiate with your vendor or your prospective vendor, like the one you're using, or like ourselves if we are your processor. And there are common advantages and tricks and schemes that other processors use. They're not illegal, they're just a scheme. However, it's done because you as the client really don't understand it. And I hear many people say they don't accept American Express, and I'm not trying to have you accept American Express. I'm not trying to convince you, but many people say that you don't accept American Express because it is a higher rate. However, by the end of today's webinar, I'm going to try and explain to you why that necessarily isn't the case. There are transactions where you actually will be paying more than American Express on your Visa and MasterCard transactions. So what is it that processors actually do? Let's go through the steps. Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover will not deal with you directly. For those of you that are in the insurance business, you know that you necessarily can't actually deal with Blue Cross Blue Shield directly, Medicare directly, without going through a clearinghouse. In essence, that's what your credit card processors like us really are. We're the third party. We're the clearinghouse that steps in between you and the bank. Now, What you see down here is NPC and First Data, and you may use one of those. We actually work as a third-party ISO processor with Wells Fargo Bank. However, there's a term, and I'm going to get into this, called interchange, and I want you to remember what that word really is going to mean. Because a processor, the third party, reads your credit or debit card information from a card and connects it to the bank that issued those cards to see if there are enough funds or credit available. And the reason that I say that is because there's a difference between a debit card that goes directly to your checking account or your bank and the funds are taken out immediately, or a credit card which has a credit balance associated with it, and they're all aligned with the bank. And what we do is we ask you as the merchant asks us as a third-party processor that goes through that bank for an authorization number, which then gives it to you and allows you to process that credit card and then get the funds processed to your respective bank. The bank that you use, whether it's your checking account, your savings account, however, and every bank has to be associated with you. And that's how you get the funds. More importantly, how long does it take you to get the funds? Some have seen it in 24, 36 hours. A company like ours will process your funds and into your bank within 12 hours. So let's take the steps of how this is done. A patient, a client, a cardholder, for example, they come in and they present the payment to you, whether it's a copay, whether it's a deductible, or whether it's a physical act, a treatment. And they request you, or the merchant, to authorize that and then present the service. But usually it's the other way.